This year, the Poetry Postcard Fest celebrates its 20th anniversary. From the fest, many a creative project has spawned, and one recent example of that is Julie Masters' new book, No Headlines Here, Postcard Poems. Julie is the author of two other books, Away from Car Noise and Billboards, and Quilts of Sound, and she is a PNW or Cascadian creative whose poetry reflects the natural world, the human world, and the inner life. Her new collection of pithy poems is the product of 5 years of participating in the festival, in which folks sign up to send 31 original poems on postcards to other participants each summer. She instructs you to read it, the book, cover to cover, or to open to a page to get a read on something touching, quiet, or real. Thank you, Julie, for spending this time with me this afternoon.
Sure, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I was thinking we could start by flipping to a random page and reading a poem.
Okay.
All
So
right.
who's doing the flipping, you or me?
You.
Okay, I will flip. Okay, here's what I arrived at. This body loves to move, tenses and aches, responds to touch, subject to time, needs care, and oddly, I say it's me, but also it's mine.
Beautiful. That ending. It's funny that you flipped to that one because that's one of the ones I wrote down some notes about.
Ah,
So I think we'll come back to that poem in just a little bit. But I want to ask you, what inspired you to invite readers to do this with your book? To flip to any random page. It kind of shakes the reader out of their standard book reading experience.
oh, well, because each one of these is like a little snapshot and they're not necessarily related. I mean, they may be, I tried to kind of put them in an order that kind of goes from one to another, but each one is a daily postcard exercise in writing, contemplation, being with words. And sometimes that's how I read a book. You know, you just flip open and see what life wants you to know right then. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's divination, but it's just who knows what. A little kismet might occur or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because my follow-up question was something like this could be an effective divination. There's, right, like, have you heard of bibliomancy, writing, where you flip to it, you pick a pattern, maybe of numbers, maybe inspired by something, maybe random, flip to a random page, pick a random line on that page based on your pattern, and write from there, or use it as some sort of kismet or guidance for your day. Do you ever do something like that with your book?
No, and I hadn't heard that term, bibliomancy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bibliomancy.
interesting.
Yeah, I
I
learned a
think
little
it's a
bit
great
about
idea.
that. Yeah, it is. I learned a little about that from Matt Treese. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I think that yeah, I think that would be a fun thing to do, and I could see even for another postcard fest something where you like flip to a random page of this book and sort of graft from the poem on the page and let it inspire a next poem.
I think you could do it with anything. And it kind of reminds me of my undergraduate career where I was doing an independent study in my early 20s out of a school. Well, it was Goddard College, and then they went sort of bankrupt, and then they moved their non-residential programs to Vermont College, and I was living in Boston, and so I would just go into a bookstore and just sort of look around and find something that captured my attention and buy it and read it and write about it, and it was sort of a correspondence course. And of course, in those days there were no computers, so I would mail my packet of jottings, semi-legible. I guess I had to be more legible in those days. I'm left-handed. To my advisor, and then we'd have like this back and forth correspondence. And I always found like just the right thing, you know, in a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
They can still be magical places, though. I must confess, I do a lot of electronic reading
Mm-hmm.
nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yeah. It carries its own kind of magic, I suppose. What were you studying at that time?
I was studying writing, holistic health, psychology.
Cool.
Yeah.
So would you tend towards those sections, or really
Actually,
just truly
what
walk
was
a
really
loop?
potent at the time in the early '80s was there was a lot of feminist scholarship about feminine views on spirituality, anthropology. There was just a lot of great feminist scholarship, and that's what I was attracted to at the time. And
Yeah.
it was kind of an interesting thing. One night I was walking around my neighborhood, looked at the moon, and thought, I wonder what people have thought about the moon over history. I knew nothing. I did not know that that was like a whole feminine thing about like the menstrual cycles and the tides, and the word
Mm-hmm.
lunacy comes from the moon. There's a lot of etymological stuff around that. Just opened up a whole thing. So that was a case of
But you had that. You might not have known, but you had that intuition that
somehow,
brought you into that
who
whole a
knows? Yeah,
whole new world, almost
yeah,
literally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was cool. So I guess I'm kind of an intuitive person, and I and sort of an improviser. So I write free verse, and maybe that's also why the idea came to invite readers to open the book
Absolutely.
and improvise into how they're
Yeah.
going to digest it.
Yeah. And as an intuitive person myself, I love seeing it more out in the world, and I think it shakes people who don't practice with that muscle, who don't work that muscle out as frequently. That's a easy demonstration of a way that you can work that muscle, that intuitive creative muscle, to just flip to a random page in a random book and see what it says to you and what it makes you think. That's super accessible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Your bio on the back of the book says your poetry reflects the natural world, the human world, and the inner life. Your poetry, though, sometimes blurs those lines, particularly between the human and the natural world. So, why is it important to distinguish those areas of inspiration in your poetry, and why is it also, at the same time, important to blur them?
Oh, provocative question. I guess that's your job,
Thank
huh?
you. At the moment.
Yes. Well, we are natural creatures. We're animals. But we live this very different life indoors and with machines, and as we are currently talking to each other on
Yeah.
computers. And yeah, we have a whole human intellectual life, and we forget our naturalness. Uh, so there's the distinction, but I think in poetry we often bring that back together. A lot of poetry, the stuff that I like, it tends to be about being in nature. Of course, Mary Oliver, a prime example of that, reflecting our human experience out of the natural world or in the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did that answer the question?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. Right, there's this element, as you mentioned, right now we're talking to each other and recording ourselves via computers, machines. So there is this sort of human created world that we have to interact with on the regular, but at the same time, we came out of the woods and we can't forget that.
Yes, and we're nourished by our planet. I mean, it goes, we go. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so we're so inextricably linked, but we also have this whole life of ideas. We have mathematics, we have language. I mean, um, and all the human relationships, which of course is really the proving ground for our capacity to be what we aspire to. or not.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Um, Speaking of or not, some of your poems deal with the or not, the media news, the bad things they report, the reactionary and inflammatory ways they report them. In one poem toward the back of the book, you write, "In these weeks of gloomy news, so many of us have had to reawaken to the local." Tell me a little bit about what that means to reawaken to the local and a little about how you practice that.
Ah, yeah. Well, it means not entirely shutting off the news because, most of us want to know what's going on the larger scene in our country, in our state, in the world. But it's overwhelming, of course,
Yeah,
and
and as we've seen, it comes into the local.
it comes into the local. It does. Although a lot of it is, I mean, most of it, there's nothing we can do about it. We're, each one human being with a little bit of influence. And so to come to the local can be like super local, like in meditation practice, like what does it feel like in my body right now? How is the air on my skin? So that's like the most local. And then our immediate environment, there's an exercise that a friend of mine taught me where you just look around your room and you just let your eyes sort of slowly roam around what is right around you and really take it in. And in here, there's a lot of artwork and a lot of plants. And, for each of us, it's how we set it up the way we want it. And so that's local. And then of course, there are our communities. We're in different overlapping communities. Like you're on the board of the Cascadia poetry, I forget the rest of the words.
Poetics Lab, yeah.
Poetics Lab. And yeah, like I'm in a dance group. I'm in a meditation community. Like these overlapping communities of local people that we practice being kind to each other. We practice listening. We practice conflict resolution. If you're, I'm retired now. So if you're working, you're in a workplace, and that's part of your locality. And so that's how I do that. And I think for poetry, it's all about that personal experience. I mean, I did write some poems about sort of the larger picture and my feelings about it because I'm pretty frustrated, like a lot of us are, with the national scene right now. But then it's also like that quote you read, just come down into the local, feel your own edges, get grounded, calm down, take a deep breath. It's so important just to survive without not going crazy.
Yeah, we can only live in one place at a time.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, thanks. How long have you been in a meditation circle or doing a meditation practice?
I've been doing meditation off and on since I was 13. I got initiated into transcendental meditation back in I guess it was the 70s. My brother was actually, he's still into it. And I dabbled in a lot of different things. And currently, where I am in Corvallis, Oregon, the Oregon State University has a Contemplative Studies Institute, which is a pretty cool thing. And they have meditation practice groups and kind of classes in it that I'm involved in.
That's pretty profound. Not a lot of people start meditating at 13.
No, that's probably true.
We might be better off if more people did start meditating at 13.
We might be. We might be.
Yeah. Do you think that has had a sort of far-reaching impact in your life?
I think it does. I mean, there have been phases where I was pretty disciplined in my practice, and then other phases where I was more involved in, like the working life, raising a family, different things like that, creative things, dancing, writing, uh, actually make glass mosaics nowadays as well. So. But yeah, I do think having a sort of baseline capacity to stop and get quiet and take a breath, and it's an ongoing thing. Like your mind always wanders, you come back again.
Mm-hmm.
But to have a sense of kind of the spacious quality of the, the sort of background field of what all life is being played out on. Like
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. And then underneath, like what's underneath that? There's this quiet, there's a foundation. So yeah, meditation gives me a sense of that. And so then I try to sometimes describe these experiences in meditation in my writing. And I don't know, I think it's difficult to do. I think that poetry can be useful for that, but if somebody doesn't have uh, some kind of thing to compare it to or their own experience, it might just, it's just a bunch of words until it's,
Yeah, could fall flat. Yeah.
yeah. So that's a challenge.
Do you find that poetry, dance, glass mosaic, these other creative practices you have also a meditative quality to them?
Yes, definitely writing does. I mean, because to write poetry for me is to just kind of relax into the moment. And maybe I look at something around me or um, think of a picture in my mind and a feeling and write about it. Uh, and, I have sort of an inner critic going on too. Like I'm writing, I'm sort of editing. I should probably
Mm-hmm.
have less of that critic going on, but
We're all trying to bring that critic to a minimum.
yes, yes. But yes, it is a little bit of an altered state to be writing poetry.
Hmm. Yeah. So you described it a little bit as sort of relaxing into your environment, into your place, into the poem. Do you get a sense that that sort of, I guess, more immediate locality around you is where the poem is coming from? Is it coming from somewhere deep inside, somewhere just outside, somewhere in the larger outside?
I think it's more the first two, like local and inside, although I think like some of my earlier work was more in my imagination, making up pictures and stuff. I feel like in the last few years, it's more immediate. And particularly the postcards, like I'll just sit down in the morning with my journal and just write a few lines about uh, some experience that I've seen or felt. And what I love about the postcard poems is that they're so short. Like I don't have to, I can bring it to a close with just a little something that doesn't have to make a sort of grand proclamation. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. These small meditations.
Yeah.
And yet, it can generate, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that you might have experienced some sort of like out of body experience sometimes in writing some of these poems. Certainly reading them, I felt that. There's one where you write, I think this is a good time to tie it back to the one you opened up with. This body loves to move, tenses and aches, responds to touch, subject to time, needs care, and oddly, I say it's me, but also it's mine. And that last line sort of like, it's not like a full thrust. I'm looking down on myself necessarily, but there's a little bit of that separation of the self and the body where just like, like I'm in my shadow a little bit, sort of looking back at myself, right? It's me, but also it's mine. I have the responsibility to take care of it, to move it, to give it the touch that it needs, Do you find that in any of the writing of your poems?
Yes, well, that one in particular, it's interesting, like how the reader is having their own experience of it, and so what I meant by "it's mine" and how you heard it are slightly different. So to
Yeah.
me, what I was saying was I was sort of saying I'm not my body. Like my body is mine. Like it's odd. It's like we live in a body, and then when the body's no longer alive, neither are we, and yet we have this expansive consciousness. I I used to hear it said like your body is inside of you, like you're larger than your body somehow, like if you're a field of energy.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was referring to. But at the same time, yeah, it's mine and I'm responsible, like you said, to take care of it, feed it, make sure it gets rest, brush its teeth, you know.
Yeah. Gotta
Yeah.
attend to the dental hygiene.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an example of, yeah, it was just admiring the body and the experience of the sensual experience of the body, and then yet, like, who is having that experience? Like, that's the big question in a lot of spiritual practices or philosophies, I guess. Like the non-dual meditation thing is like, well, who is having these thoughts? Like, to whom are the
Hmm.
thoughts arising? And so that's a question that I uh, breathe into while I'm meditating and sometimes while I'm writing or try to write about that.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking about. I'm trying to remember what the podcast was. I listened maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Um, but what really stuck with me was the podcast was kind of about the search for extraterrestrial life. The hypothesis: is it out there? Is it not? Could we ever meet it? Etc. And they started with the question. They're like, well, if we are trying to see if there's life out there, what is life? And we need to define that in order to answer this question. And one of the things that they said, I think they had a guest on to philosophize about the question a little bit. And the guest said, life is the universe trying to understand itself. And so, what resonated with me with what you just said is this idea of to whom is the thought arising. If I am sort of the universe trying to understand itself, it's this particular, in Buddhism they might call it the Dharma position, this particular angle from which only I am seeing the universe right now, and that's important to the whole picture, but also just a small fraction of it.
Mm, yeah. Well,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense, but at the same time, your statement that you heard, the universe, life is the universe trying to understand itself. It's very expansive, isn't it?
It does feel very expansive, yeah, as a statement, yeah.
And of course, as humans, we're now faced with a new question with the artificial intelligence, like what is intelligence? What is consciousness? Not that we haven't always been curious about what consciousness is, but it becomes more acute in the moment that we're in. And I don't
Yes,
answer to the
absolutely.
moment. Just saying.
But it's important to ask the question.
Yeah, yeah.
There's another poem where you say, full life, the sky is thick with crows, moving west against the gray dawn sky. My heart swells with it, as if I could go with them, as if I am part of this. And that last line, as if I am part of this, really resonated with me, and feels relevant to this conversation, right? That and this riddle of, to whom is the thought arising? Am I a crow right now?
Yeah. I love that. I love hearing you read these to me. Just out of the
Oh,
blue,
good.
like, oh, that one. Did I write that? Like at some moment I did, but that's another moment. So to hear it new, yeah. And I remember just sitting in my kitchen, looking out the window at the crows heading west, and they fascinate me because sometimes they just keep coming and they're so random the way, unlike the geese, which all come together in a V. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, each kind of bird has their own way of traveling and their own name for
Mm-hmm.
their group. It's a murder of crows, but yeah. And then feeling like, again, the expansiveness, like, okay, I could just sort of float out there with them. Like we have this very separated view of ourselves and nature, and I think that I imagine that there may be other cultures that are not educated to feel so separated, and so it's feels alive to me to invite and sort of consider what if it's not separate? Like, what if when I'm walking in a place with a lot of, in the woods, for example, like if I just sort of imagine them, I don't know if communicating is the right word, just like some sort of
Yeah.
uh, interrelationship that is not the way we think of things usually, but it
Yeah.
feels nourishing. So,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence that this place, which was the Cascadia, was, the Pacific Northwest, was the epicenter of such a culture. You're
Mm,
sitting under some Pacific Northwest art right there that I can
yeah.
see. Beautiful whale, it looks like,
Yeah.
um,
From Alaska.
and yeah, and so right, I don't think it's any coincidence that this place generates that kind of feeling.
Mm.
And there's certainly a lot to be learned from those indigenous tribes. I don't know what it is down by you in Corvallis, but up here, the Duwamish, many others, had a culture that and a language, right? English sort of separates us. Lashutsi, it's sort of embedded into the language that you're a part of things.
Yeah, it's something, if we can ever get back to that, then we'll probably thrive a little better than the way things are going now.
I think so.
Which
I
isn't to
think
say that we
so.
aren't also incredibly thriving, living longer than ever, and more prosperous, and all that, blah, blah, blah. But of course, there's a dark side, which
Yeah,
you
yeah,
and I are aware of.
yeah. Lots of wealth inequality, deep-seated racism, homophobia, misogyny, patriarchy. The list goes on.
It does. It does.
Yeah. One of the things that I think you might prescribe to combat that would be sort of a gratitude practice. There's, like I was saying to you earlier, this book really read to me as grateful, which I was grateful for. Having that experience of gratitude um, is so profound, and it really connects us to everything around us. So I guess maybe first things first, would you read that poem, Generosity is When I Reach Into the Branches?
Sure. I happen to have a little post-it on there because I guess we talked
Excellent.
before because it's not paginated. Generosity is when I reach into the branches of that bush, finger the fat blue berries as they give themselves easily, all the while repeating, "Thank you, thank you." So just down the street from me is a blueberry farm, a you-pick place, and I love to go there and pick a whole bunch of blueberries and put them in the freezer. And I realized recently that I need to finish up last year's because pretty soon there's going to be
This
a
year's
new
are
crop.
coming. Yeah.
But yeah, being out there one day, I just, the abundance, you're just there in this row and there's just like so many berries. It's unbelievable. You can't imagine how they're ever going to get consumed. But a lot of people come and pick them.
Yeah. It's and I imagine also, you know, if everybody said thank you to every blueberry they picked the way you do in the poem, we'd all be a little more grateful. That would be a good thing. It reminds me, I just finished the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, Potawatomi person, and also ecologist, biologist, botanist, I believe. And she talks about the concept of the honorable harvest, which is part of her Potawatomi spiritual teachings, as well as a few other tribes across the continent. And they say, take what is readily given, the blueberries that come off the branch easily, and be grateful. Are two of the very central ideas of that. And of course, I'm not an indigenous person. I'm saying this secondhand, but I think it's a good practice. And that sort of overlap was really apparent to me when I was reading your poem just after I had finished that book.
Well, it's one of the qualities that we can consciously cultivate when we remember, and not be distracted by all the other things. But I have over the years, at times, practiced cultivating qualities like gratitude, kindness, love of others. It just makes life richer. And then when something difficult comes along, I'm no saint. I'm not going to be. You read about some people who really have amazing responses to things. What can I say? At least it's a good practice. Yeah.
It's a good practice. My uncle used to tell me, he was talking about baseball, but he used to say, skill leads to luck. And I think it applies to gratitude as well.
Right.
If you're practicing it, when the moment happens, if you're practicing it, you're more likely to get lucky.
That's right.
And have that response.
I used to say gratitude makes a space inside you for things to happen, which is more of a kind of mystical statement that I found to be true. Yeah.
I like it. It's a potent little, what's the word?
I don't know.
Aphorism, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. How has the Postcard Fest interacted with a gratitude practice or a kindness practice?
The Postcard Fest, what a great idea. And I'm so happy that it's the 20th year. And I think this year will be my 6th year doing it. And I don't remember exactly how I heard about it, but I heard about it somewhere. And I was like, what a great idea. I'm going to sign up for that right now. Well, you're giving something. You have an opportunity to create something with pretty much no prescription, which is my style. You just improvise a thing. If you're artistic, you make a beautiful card, maybe a little bit sometimes, or you buy some beautiful cards, and then you receive something back from the other people on the list. And it's just, for me, primarily, it's the discipline. Okay, I'm going to do these 30 or 31, however many it is, in this period of time, and that is motivating for me. But of course, yes, it is an opportunity to cultivate whatever qualities are arising from getting quiet and thinking about. It's usually in the mornings when I'm fresh and sitting down to write something. And sometimes I'll write 3 or 4 in a row at a time, and then maybe go off and do the rest of life for a while and come back. So I think it is an opportunity to be grateful and also to be creative. And it's just cool that there's people out there who want to do this thing with you and you don't know who they are. And I love like looking at the addresses and like, oh, they're in this place, or oh, I got to get an international postcard stamp, which is this cool like thing that looks like a sun.
Yeah, the little circle. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just kind of neat. And occasionally somebody will like say something, like they'll remember like what I wrote to them, and then they'll like say something about it. It doesn't happen very often, but they're like keeping track, which I think is like especially, I just appreciate that. That's really nice.
Yeah, that community building via poetry.
Yeah.
And the mail. Yeah, that's a really beautiful thing. What do you think about reading It's Saturday, So I'll Ride My Bicycle?
Oh, I'd be happy to do it. It's Saturday, so I'll ride my bike to the farmer's market. Maybe I'll buy some beans, but mostly I'll soak in the sense of normalcy, the crowd milling and moving. No headlines here, just fruits of the soil and folks of the town. So that would be true in any time, but in particular, it was like the first few months of the Trump administration when I wrote that. It's like, okay, things just seem so insane, but like, okay, there's no headlines here. It's just normal. We're at the farmer's market. There's beans. There's people. Just so soothing, necessarily soothing.
Yeah. You know, if that becomes the title, no headlines here, it's so of its moment, of course, because the headlines since the Trump administration, I mean, even before the Trump administration took over for the second time, but they've been so prevalent, so constant, so all caps and loud and big and in your face. And so it feels like an invitation away from all of that as a title, and then once you read the poem it's from, you know, it really reinforces that. Were there any other contenders for title? Did you know, like, once you wrote that poem, were you like, ooh, that's a good title? Or, you know, did it take a little while?
I didn't, when I wrote any of these poems, I wasn't thinking I was going to put together a book. I put together the book because I was doing a reading at a local Corvallis Poetics at a coffee shop here near campus. And I usually, when poets are the featured poet, like we have a featured poet and then an open mic thing, and usually they bring something. So I thought I should bring something, so I better put together a book. And I looked around, like, how I wasn't going to try to submit it to a publishing company because I didn't have time, and I don't know. They say, oh, you got to get like 50 rejections before you get accepted, and it's like, well, I don't have the stamina for that, so I'm just going to do it myself, like whatever. And so I ended up putting together 2 books. The Quilts of Sound has longer poems, and then the postcard poems, which is the much more popular book, I can tell you. People really like that one. And the title, you know, it just sort of jumped out at me. I didn't plan it. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, I like that title. No headlines here. And actually, it's kind of a lot like the title of my first little chapbook, which is Away from Car Noise and Billboards. It's kind of the same thing. Like, just
they are very similar.
You know, like, just get kind of back down into normalcy, or the sort of small moment-to-moment experience of being alive.
Yeah, that's what we got.
That's what we
It's a
got.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the blueberries, are blueberries your favorite fruit?
Uh, no, not necessarily. I don't. Oh, you know what? Peaches are my favorite fruit. And
Peaches.
peaches are only ripe a little while in the summer, and I wrote a series of postcards about peaches, which I didn't end up including any of them in this book for some reason. Um, but yeah, like the smell and flavor of peaches when they're really ripe. Yeah,
Yeah, that
nothing better.
crunch, and that's delicious.
Yeah.
Delicious.
You
Maybe
see,
the next book is all about peaches.
maybe a whole book about peaches. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Julie, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me this afternoon.
Likewise, Zach. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And it has. It's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to share with anybody who sees or listens to this?
Um,
Where to find the book, if it's
oh yeah,
available,
the
or...
book. The books. Well, it's going to be backwards, but yeah, no headlines here. Postcard poems and quilts of sound, which the cover is a part of a mosaic window that I made, are both available on Amazon.
All right. Very nice. Well, we'll include the links in the post. Thank you so much.
Thank you.